Welcome to Echoes After Midnight, where the woods are not empty, the dark is not safe, and you are never alone. A Thorne in the Flesh, The Family We Knew, by Alexander Baineswool. The fog clung to whispering pines like a shroud that refused to rot. Elias Thorne killed the engine of his black panel van at the edge of town, the headlights cutting twin tunnels through the mist before dying with a click. October rain hissed against the windshield, and somewhere deeper in the pines, something seemed to answer the rain with its own low, guttural snarl. It could have been the wind. Probably not. He sat a moment, gloved hands on the wheel, just listening. 14 human kills before the world taught him the difference between monsters and monsters. The latter, less than human. He still remembered the first real one. The skinwalker, wearing the face of a man he'd meant to carve up for beating his own children to death. The thing had smiled with the dead man's mouth and spoken in Elias's little sister's voice, the one that had gone silent under the wheels of a drunk driver 20 years earlier. Eli, you came for me. The knife had gone in anyway. The skin had split like wet paper, revealing black sinew and too many teeth. That night, Elias learned the true shape of hunger. Now he hunted the ones the public would never believe. Werewolves in three-piece suits. Wendigos hollowed out by winter starvation. Skinwalkers peeling faces like masks from a costume rack. The world called the aftermath bear attacks or missing hikers. Elias knew better. He called it a challenge. He stepped out, boots sinking into mud, and slung the duffel over his shoulder. Inside, silver-edged knives etched with old symbols he'd paid a half-mad Cree elder to burn into the steel. A flare gun loaded with magnesium rounds, and the bone-handled carving set that had once been for people. The motel sign flickered vacancy in dying neon. Room 13 smelled of mildew and old cigarettes. He tacked the newspaper clippings to the peeling wallpaper. 5 disappearances in 2 months. Bodies found half-eaten, hearts missing. The sheriff's statement said it was likely a rogue black bear and that folks should stay out of the woods after dark. Elias smiled without humor. Bears didn't mimic voices. The Timberline Tavern was the only place still lit after 9 o'clock. Smoke and cheap beer and the low mutter of loggers who'd lost friends. Elias slid onto a stool in a faded flannel and trucker cap, just another drifter. The bartender, Sarah, had eyes like old bruises and a voice worn raw from screaming into pillows. "New in town?" she asked, sliding him a pint. "Looking for work. I'm a tracker. I heard you got a problem with wolves." She laughed once, sharp. "Wolves don't take out the hearts and leave the rest. My brother Danny went missing last week. Found what was left 2 miles up the old logging road. Coroner said animal, but Danny called me that night. He left a voicemail." Her hand shook as she poured. "He said my name. Twice. Then something else answered back in his voice, as if it was practicing." Elias's pulse didn't quicken. That was the gift the old life had given him. Ice where fear should be. "Mind if I listen to it?" She played it on her cracked phone. Static, wind, then Danny's voice, calm at first. "Sarah, it's me. I think I saw something." There was a crunch. Then the same voice, perfect, saying, "Come find me, sis. I'm cold." The call ended with a sound that could only be described as chewing. Elias memorized the cadence. A skinwalker, or worse, a wendigo that had learned the trick. They wore the dead like coats when the hunger got clever. He bought her a drink and let her talk. By midnight, he knew the logging company had cut too deep into the old growth last spring, right where the First Nations stories said the hungry ones slept. Good. Disturbance meant fresh monsters. He went into the woods at 2 a.m., flashlight off, moving the way he used to move when the police were still calling him the Carver. The pines closed around him like ribs. Fog swallowed sound until even his own breathing felt borrowed. He found the tracks about a mile in. Human boot prints that suddenly stretched too long, toes splaying into claws. A smell like spoiled meat and iron. The kill site was a clearing ringed by broken saplings. What remained of a man lay splayed across a stump. Ribcage cracked open like a cabinet. Heart gone. The rest looked chewed, then spat out. Elias knelt, gloved fingers tracing the bite radius. Too wide for wolf. Too precise for bear. There, scraps of flannel caught on a low branch. Danny's shirt. The skinwalker had worn it recently. A twig snapped behind him. Elias didn't turn. He breathed through his mouth and waited. A voice drifted through the fog, soft and familiar. His own sister again. Eli, I'm still cold. The knife was in his hand before the echo died. He spun low. Nothing. Only the trees and the wet dark. But the voice came from everywhere now. Layered. Sarah's brother, the dead loggers, children who'd never been reported. He left the site without taking a trophy. Tonight was just recon. Back at the motel, he found his door unlocked. Inside, the clippings had been rearranged into a smiley face. One new addition, a Polaroid of Sarah sleeping in her apartment taken through the window. On the back, in perfect block letters, she tastes like family. Elias felt the old hunger stir. Not for blood, but for the clean geometry of the kill. He crushed the photo and packed the duffel. The next 3 days were a slow tightening of wire. He followed Sarah during the day, watching for the telltale hesitation in her walk, the way skinwalkers sometimes forgot which leg they were supposed to limp on. She seemed real, but the voicemail had been real too. He interviewed the grieving families. One wife kept rocking in her chair, repeating her husband's last words in a voice an octave too low. Another man claimed his daughter had come home the night she vanished, eaten dinner, then walked back into the woods smiling with too many teeth. Paranoia settled over whispering pines like black frost. People started locking doors at dusk. Elias loved it. The fear made the monsters bold. On the 4th night he set the trap. He chose the abandoned logging camp where the first body had been found. An old, clear cut ringed by rusted machinery and half-felled trees. He strung monofilament trip lines at ankle height, each tied to a magnesium flare. In the center he dragged a fresh deer carcass, gutted it, and let the blood pool. Then he climbed into the cab of a derelict skidder, carving knife across his lap, and waited. Midnight brought the storm. Rain hammered the metal roof like thrown bones. Lightning bleached the clearing white. The thing came on all fours, sniffing. It wore Danny's face. Sarah's brother, complete with the scar over one eye. But the body underneath was wrong. Ribs protruding like a starved dog, skin stretched drum-tight over elongated limbs, antlers budding from the scalp in wet velvet nubs. Wendigo. The hunger had worn the skinwalker's trick like a hat. It rose on hind legs, 8 feet of famine and stolen meat. The stolen voice crooned, Eli. You came back for me. Elias's grip tightened until the bone handle creaked. Wrong sister, asshole. He triggered the first flare line with a thrown rock. White fire erupted 10 feet away. The Wendigo shrieked, human, animal, and something older that scraped the inside of Elias's skull. It charged. He dropped from the cab and rolled. Claws raked the metal where his head had been, peeling steel like paper. The second flare went up as it spun. Magnesium light cooked the stolen face. Skin sloughed off in burning sheets, revealing black gums and rows of blood-stained needle teeth. Elias lunged inside its reach, serial killer close, and drove the silver blade up under the sternum. The Wendigo howled and backhanded him. He flew 10 feet, ribs cracking like dry kindling. Pain was an old friend. He used it to roll aside as antlers slammed into the mud where his spine had been. It came again, voice fracturing into every victim it had ever worn. His sister, Danny. The kids Elias had once failed to save. You're just like me, it gurgled, blood and rain pouring from its mouth. You wear the skin of a man. You carve them up and call it justice. We're the same hunger. Elias laughed once, blood on his teeth. Difference is, I don't pretend. He shoulder-rolled under the next swipe, came up behind, and carved a long vertical line down its back. The silver hissed like fat in a pan. The Wendigo convulsed, trying to shed the burning skin, but the old Cree symbols held. It staggered toward the tree line, trailing fire and stolen faces. Elias followed at a limp, carving knife low. The final flare line cut its ankle. White light swallowed it whole. The scream peaked, then broke into wet gurgles as the magnesium ate through whatever passed for a heart. The thing collapsed, skin sloughing away until only a blackened, antlered skeleton remained, still twitching. Elias stood over it until the rain put the last embers out. He felt nothing like victory. Only the familiar, hollow satisfaction of a job finished. The old bloodlust whispered that human throats would be softer, easier. He told it to shut up. Dawn found him at the motel packing. Sarah knocked once. She looked exhausted but alive. They're saying it was a bear. Big one. Sheriff's closing the case. Elias zipped the duffel. Sure it was. She studied him a long moment. You're leaving. Always do. She stepped closer. For a heartbeat, he saw the hesitation, the same micropause the skinwalker had shown. Then she hugged him, quick and fierce, and he smelled only soap and fierce sweat. Human, whatever you are, she whispered. Thank you. He drove out of whispering pines as the sun burned the last fog away. In the rear view, the town shrank to matchsticks. His ribs ached. The carving knife lay on the passenger seat, still tacky with Wendigo blood. On the radio, the news ticker mentioned a new string of animal attacks 2 counties over. Family of 4 found eviscerated in their cabin, hearts missing. Elias smiled at the road ahead, small and cold. The hunt never ended. It only changed skins. And somewhere in the pines behind him, something wearing Sarah's face watched the van disappear, licking stolen lips, already learning the new voice it would use next time the carver came back to town. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to hit that like and subscribe for more echoes after midnight.